That rough cut needs a little work here on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast because we got the fade, we got it moving, we got our guest, we got a show. Welcome to the Short Time Wrestling Podcast, live here, recording live. So if you're listening later, we're obviously not live, but we're live here with Zach Bogle, founder, creator, originator. I don't know. We got to come up with a better title than those boring things. From Stalemates, we're going to be talking about Stalemates Street League 2. The second one coming up October 29th in Des Moines at the State Fairgrounds. If you've seen the billboard, I want to hear about it in the chat. Of course, already, one thing that's really popular in the chat, Joe Caprino, right now, the mustache is coming back. Mr. Bogle, you got to tell us, what's with the Buffett-style pencil-thin mustache?
So really all I got to work with. So
are you telling me you're so predisposed with Iowa DNA that you can only grow? No, sorry.
I mean, you can see, that's pretty much it. I got a little bit under here, but I wish I could do a little flavor saver at least. But this is all I got, so it's what you get.
I don't know. Can we say that? Is that what it's actually called? Is this a PG-13 show? I don't even know. I mean, we've had all sorts of stuff. But anyway, Zach, welcome to the show. It's been overdue. We've crossed paths a couple times throughout the course of Stalemates' infancy, which it's still, you're still an infant in terms of the terms of Stalemates. But one, what's it like to know that we've got college wrestling coming up, and you are actually going to be, oh my goodness, not just like, okay, here and there, 2 trips. You're going to have probably more trips planned, right?
Yeah, hopefully, it's going to be cool because now there's actually going to be fans. I know when I met you down in Arkansas, there was fans. So that was cool. We got to run into some people that knew, what we were doing. But I'm excited to get out there and like be around wrestling people again, like just seeing Super 32 over the weekends, like seeing that angle of up above and there's all those fans around the mat, like gets me freaking pumped. So I'm pumped, man. I don't really know where we're going to go. We're going to play it week by week. I know I'm going to go down to Texas for the Oklahoma State Iowa duel and some other stuff, but I'm excited.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've still got to work on that one with USA Wrestling or whoever's coordinating, and as far as any mic work that may be needed, because kind of into that kind of thing. In February, I think that date is open for me. But let's go back to Arkansas a little bit. Last year, you had a couple campus tours with the infancy again of Stalemates, Campbell and Arkansas Little Rock. Now, Little Rock is a program that's near and dear to my heart now, but why those 2 places, and why were those the early trips for you?
Oh, they wanted us. Campbell, they invited us down there to do their wrestle offs. We're going to help promote that. And then Arkansas, what's crazy is I was actually going to reach out to them. Like I was literally creeping on Coach Erisman's Twitter. And then all of a sudden he DM'd me an hour later. It was really, really weird. I was like, hey, you should come down here. And I was like, say less. So we went down there, went out to Northern Colorado, saw Marino. That was really cool. What's weird is all these places that we wanted to go to, they just reached out. There was a couple that we had to turn down. So I'm hoping to get out there. I want to go down to Bellarmine and see Coach Chuck down there. We were supposed to see him last year at Army. And then he obviously got the head coach job at Bellarmine. So hopefully we can get out there if they let us. We like to go to any of those smaller market schools and kind of give them the full court press from Stalemates.
We talk about smaller market, yet you are from one of the bigger market of high school wrestling states and high school wrestling schools. Talk a little bit about what it was like for you growing up in the state of Iowa wrestling.
I mean, it's kind of weird. Like everybody from the outside of Iowa seems like everywhere you walk, there's wrestling people on every corner, which is probably more prevalent than other states. But it's still pretty niche, and you kind of everybody kind of knows everybody. The cool thing about Stalemates is I was never a good wrestler, so people didn't really know me. So we're kind of people are always like, you're from Iowa, I wasn't ranked, I wasn't winning big tournaments, so they didn't really know who I am. So we try to I love Iowa and everything, but we try to keep it on we try to cover everything. We have a big East Coast audience, and then obviously Iowa's big, but we'd like to get out west, coming up soon. So I was great though. What's cool about Iowa is you got your average sports fan is into wrestling, which is cool. Most of them, or at least they know a little bit. They know if Iowa State's good or Iowa's good or if UNI's coming up. They have somewhat of a clue, where I think other states, the average sports fan doesn't even know who their guys are.
Or in some cases, you mentioned Iowa, they're like Gable, or if they're closer to our age, it's Oh yeah, they had that. Like even the guy that was doing my walkout concrete basement, like redoing the steps, is like, yeah, I did the weight room at Iowa State. They had that guy, the undefeated guy, Sanders. Was
Yeah,
it
yeah, it seems
Sanderson?
like was.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah,
He was good.
yeah,
I'm like, yeah. And this
yeah.
this is a.
I'll,
I mean, yeah. I mean,
I'll say this.
it
I'll say
happens.
this about Iowa Hawkeye fans. Iowa Hawkeye fans, and like it's pretty documented. I'm an Iowa State fan. Iowa Hawkeye fans, like the average the average sports, like just Iowa Hawkeye fan, not even wrestling fan. Like the average fan knows about wrestling. Like they go because they know about Spencer Lee. Where like I feel like some other schools kind of lack that. They don't really pay attention to like every sports, but Hawkeye fans in general, like they don't have anything to do with wrestling, but they'll go to the dual meet. That's why they were able to get the numbers that they're able to put up as far as like dual meet attendance, and like that's why everybody kind of hates them at NCAA's, because they're loud and they're vocal and they're present.
I'll say this: first time I went to Carver was not that Carver Magic type of experience, because it was the Iowa City duels. Actually, it started out with
Oh yeah,
It was actually then they did Mankato and Iowa
Central.
Central in the field house,
Yeah.
and then they wrestled Arizona State in the afternoon on a Friday, and it was cool being in Carver. But then, I moved away, came back, and then you get to experience like I've been a couple times during that wrestling full one year. Like Purdue, okay. Purdue and Minnesota, there were good matches, but at the same with Minnesota especially, but it was like, Then the Twitter duel, and I think we all know what the Twitter duel was with Penn State and Iowa, and I've been to sporting events for the last 20 years. Never in my life had I heard an arena that loud when Tony Ramos pinned Jordan Conaway. It was just like the place. I mean, it was on a billboard outside of Des Moines, the Ramos Flex. So I will say this, even as I'm impartial, except for one team now. I'm Little Rock's hired gun. But I don't care who wins. I just love to see great wrestling. But you guys in Iowa are spoiled growing up, having the opportunity to become wrestling fans and then seeing Carver Magic. Even if you're not a Hawkeye fan, you got to respect Carver Magic. It's just crazy to see.
100%. Anytime I have like a friend who's like curious about wrestling, I'll be like, hey, we got to take you to Iowa City. We'll take them to either the Penn State duel, Oklahoma State duel, sometimes the Minnesota duel, like Iowa State duel too. Even if Iowa State's not like up to speed with Iowa, it's still like in-state rivalry. It's gonna be fun. I wish they would duel you and I. I wish we would get that at West Gym. I don't know if they could do it at West Gym, but do it at the bigger arena there.
McLeod Center, I believe it's called. Right?
Yeah, McLeod Center. Yeah. Dang, what do you not know? Is there anything that you don't know about wrestling? Like,
please don't put me on the spot. I do know. I think I do know your alma mater, and I think I did come prepared for that. Let's see, how we doing there? We good there?
That's funny. Yeah.
Okay.
It's funny. This is my alma mater. I got to shout out Centerville, but I live in Southeast Polk.
That's it. That's what it was. So you got the neighborhood here. I got your buddy here, Willie, who stepped in and for the previous Stalemates card. So, and I answered a trivia question to get this right. So Jason Christensen to get that. So, but yeah, so that area. Now you live in Pleasant Hill, Southeast Polk, and what's it like to look around? Your friends, I think, was it your next door neighbor's the coach? Is that right? Is Jake your neighbor?
He actually just moved, which sucks because we would.
So all my research is shot to hell, man.
No, this is
hell's that?
This is very recent. I was just with Jake the other night. But yeah, like literally he's like 2 doors down. He's like 2 doors down. And it's funny is we have a neighbor in between us that we're friends with as well. And I was like, so what do you know about the new neighbor? He's like, he's a wrestling coach. And I was like, ding, what's his name? Googled him, found out everything about him. One day I'm walking by and he was in the front yard, like watering his grass or something. I'm like, and I introduced myself and I was like, you wrestled, right? And meanwhile, I've already looked up everything about him. I already knew everything, but I played it super dumb. And then we just kicked it off from there. Actually,
you do creep people, man. Okay, keep going. I don't want to make it uncomfortable because I've already made it uncomfortable because it's not the alma mater. It's your zone, I guess. So there we go.
It's my zone. I cheer for him. My wife teaches there, so it's all good.
Okay, so now you could have helped me with that first of all, instead of anyway. But yeah, and we're talking about Jake Agnew. You wrestled at Wartburg, so I'm familiar with him as having covered the Division III championships for the last what are we at? 2000, whatever year we're at. I don't even know. I was trying to do the math. But that's not important.
I think you need to do like a trivia show, and I don't know if it would be illegal.
I don't need to do Stump the Schwab because I have to have my database, man. Because I built it
for you to compete, but you could be the host.
I mean, I'd be cool with. Actually, I've done that with the NWCA a couple times. I come up with trivia questions for their.
Who do you think? Obviously, you'd be the champion, but who do you think would be like your toughest? Like, who would be your biggest threat to wrestling
It
trivia?
depends on levels and such, because I know that Andy Hamilton and Kyle Klingman. Kyle really is good with the history. He worked at the
I've
museum
heard
for a
Kyle's
while,
good.
Iowa native, a guy that actually is a student of the sport. He would probably know a lot of the stuff prior to '98 because he had been, growing up in Iowa. You see things, and when you're one of these people, you see things, you retain more. So I remember a bunch of random stuff from high school baseball games that I did the stats for, but I don't know a whole lot before watching my first NCAA tournament when Teague Moore pinned David Morgan in a neutral fall, or Teague will always say he put him there. So you will never actually, oddly, Michigan State reference, second Michigan State reference of the day. But before that, watching this stuff, that's where I need to still go back, and having built some databases and stuff. Yeah, I can know where to find results, but I think as far as actively remembering things, Kyle would probably be the guy that puts me in my place.
See, Kyle, I feel like I don't see a lot of his content, but every once in a while he'll put out a tweet that's like, how did you get that stat? Like, how long did that take you?
Because he was there normally. I mean, he's one of those guys that will come up with something. He will research something. When he was writing for columns for Win, it was like it would take him. He always says it takes me a while to write a column because I'm always wanting to make sure I research everything. So Andy's again, ability to recall stuff too.
Andy's another one. When I interviewed him, I don't know, it's probably been over a year now. I called and talked to him on the phone, and he knew my wrestling stuff. I'm like, how did you know? He's like, looked it up. I'm like, holy smokes, it's crazy.
Everybody's creeping on you. Come on, man. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
I had Brian Snyder was texting me this weekend, selfie humble brag here, trying to look up results from when he wrestled. I think either it might have been McGinnis and then Troy Bennett. His son Drew is a pretty solid wrestler, and I think he's now at Iowa. Fort Dodge. Troy is the assistant coach at Iowa Central. Excuse me. My neighbor plays soccer at Upper Iowa. That's where I get confused. Is there what tournament they wrestled in? And I was looking through using archive.org on old internet, looking for the 1997 UNI Open. UNIPanthers.com didn't even exist yet. Okay, that's how long ago we're looking for stuff like this. But I get those calls frequently. So
yeah,
I may not answer a lot of the questions myself, but I definitely win a lot of people some bar bets. Or somebody runs into that person at the bar that might be talking. You don't see this a whole lot in Iowa because everybody knows it in Iowa. Is somebody wants to talk up themselves a little bit about how they were an All-American, and I usually get the text, "Hey, have you ever heard of a so-and-so?" And I'm like, "Give me a second."
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, I'm that guy. I'm your phone a friend when somebody wants to try to impress you with their wrestling skills, and they're full of crap. So
it's also a game of telephone too. Like, hey, my neighbor I think was a national champion. I've corrected people.
Everybody's neighbor was a state champ. That's what it is. Oh, I know somebody who Tony Black, who worked with me at USA Wrestling, would always say that. It's like, yep. Everybody knows it. Oh yeah, I knew somebody wrestled. I think it was a state champ. Except for we always said our buddy Travis Shives would always say, nope, he's a state runner-up. No. Yeah. So there's always your buddy that was a state champ.
The barbershop that I work at, one of my coworkers, I was cutting this guy's hair, and then the guy left, and I was like, you know what that was? He's like, no. I'm like, that was a national champion. He's like, oh, okay. So that's another cool Iowa thing, I guess, is there is I don't know, maybe there is more relevance than I thought, but it's fun.
Well, even when I had Brooks Wheelan on the show a couple years ago, he was talking about when he was on that season, he was on Saturday Night Live. He's talking up Jordan Burroughs, and nobody else in the cast has any idea what he's talking about. I was like, but the match, he just won. This is huge. And he says nobody had any idea. He says, man, I need to get back to Iowa. He also loved Rugrats, and I didn't like Rugrats. That's why he's not been on the show since. But getting back to we could do this for hours, Zach. This is if clear your lunch schedule, folks, because we're going to be waxing poetic here. Those of you watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, Rockfin, wherever we're at, we got to check the chat over in Rockfin. Anybody in there? Matt says, Matt just left a message. We got Scott Cleavers dropped some things in there. Chat will come up on the screen. Those of you in the Discord. You know how to do that? Yeah, you can find that as part of the Patreon. Be a patron of Matt Talk Online at matttalkonline.com/contribute. But Patreon, that is kind of our hook to how you can watch Stalemates Street League number 2. So first, October 29th at the fairgrounds. What's the facility at the fairgrounds in Des Moines?
It's right up there with Carver Hawkeye and Gallagher, Iba, and Hilton. It's called the LL Family Food Center.
Ah, yes. How could I forget?
Top 5 wrestling venue. No, I mean, we wanted to do it at the Iowa State Fair. The thing is, those guys, they make so much money that they could care less about wheeling and dealing. So it's like, all right, well, if we go there, they're like impossible to work with. I probably shouldn't be trashing them like 4 days out from our event, but they're just like, we don't care, like have the event here or not. We're loaded with money. So we're like, we didn't anyways, there's no other option. So we had to go there, but it ended up, it's like, oh, there's no other options but this legendary like site in Des Moines. So we're really excited to have it at the state fair. But it is, the last venue was really good. It was like a smaller people like West Gym kind of vibe where people are like right on top of the mat. We're going to try to replicate that, but
it's like a hotel. It was like a hotel ballroom, right? Or convention
essentially,
center type of room.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, ballroom type style.
I was so freaking jealous, man. I was like, damn it, I need to be there drinking beers, Matt side, not working, watching wrestling.
Goodwin was there, Matt side, like not like just enjoying it. That's what the whole thing's about. Like I've said this before, it's not about it's not about like these guys. There's nothing on the line, right? So these guys go out there, they're not afraid to lose. They want to put on a show for the fans. They love the walkouts. It's like everything you love about wrestling, but without like the national titles and the Olympic titles and stuff like that.
Well, that kind of brings up a point is now that we're back to wrestling, we don't have COVID cards, floated COVID cards. We had Rockfin cards. We had cards everywhere. You did your cards. Now that we've got wrestling, are you worried at all about, it isn't for anything in terms of, as you just said, there's it's weekend warriors for lack of a better. A lot of these guys are still in wrestling rooms somewhere. They're either high school coaches or their assistants or they work at the Dan Gable Museum. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge for Becca Roper there. But what is the worry perhaps about putting these things on and them not being as well received now that there's a little bit more competition now that, okay, I can watch the Big Ten Network or Flow, or I can watch Jonathan Dennis with his glorious mullet.
Yeah, shout out Jonathan Dennis. He just moved to Hawaii. No, you're right. And we probably won't do one during the season, which sounds crazy, but the season's only from really November to March. Like that's really not too much time. And, I think the last one was in August. This one's in October. So there's like 3 months span. So I put out the feelers to have one the Wednesday night before NCAAs. Like everybody kind of gets into town. We're all kind of like antsy for wrestling. And I feel like everybody kind of like is looking to like, that's like the peak. Like we want to go have fun. And the problem is a lot of these guys that are wrestling are like you said, coaches and stuff. So they're trying to they're focused on their athletes. That was kind of a problem that we had. The good thing is though, we have like a lot of MMA fighters. So a lot of these guys are training in like MMA gyms, and a lot of them know the game as far as like promotions go and stuff like that. I like dealing with MMA fighters because they kind of already know what's up. But there's always room for people to work out, whether it's at a high school facility or some sort of college thing. And honestly, a lot of it, like, you could look at it as a distraction for one of your assistant coaches, but at the same time, like they can go out there and promote, promote who they are and promote what school they're coaching for and stuff like that. So I look at it as like publicity for these guys. And obviously if Stalemates Street League 3 is the same night as Penn State and Iowa, I would probably be at my own event watching that. So we try to like plan accordingly.
Who's up next? Yeah, one of those.
yeah, exactly. We don't want that. And so I don't know. Like who knows what this thing will be. If I could sneak one in during the season, I know we really want to go out to Cincinnati and have one at the Barbarian Apparel facility there. That would be super easy to do. I also thought about doing maybe something like, Flo did that, you win this tournament, you get 10 grand or something. If we could do like a smaller one, maybe like 5 grand, and you have like 5 average Joes go out there or 6 average Joes go out there and wrestle for, the winner gets winner take all. Like there's all these different things we want to do.
Yeah. I don't want to use the term tough man because some of those things were train wrecks. And was it Jose Canseco was in these things, celebrity boxing. You don't want to, it's not a sideshow. It's fun. The intent is supposed to be fun. Like I was texting you, I was telling everybody, I was watching it. I had just gotten back from Tokyo, not bragging there, but I was like, I can't go. It's like literally 2 days after I got back and I'm watching. I'm like, this is so much freaking fun. My wife's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm watching I know half these guys, but it's like, this is like, holy crap. Haven't seen that guy in forever. Oh, wow.
The thing is, like, a lot of these guys are good. You know what I mean? So they're like Coleman Crystal was really freaking good in Iowa. I think he's a 3-time state champ. Joey Laser was, I think, a round of 12 guy
He
for
was
UNI.
what?
So
McChrystal was what? Let's see, Sergeant Bluffton
Sergeant Bluff,
was it
yeah,
Sergeant Bluff
yeah,
Luton? Is that how you say it?
something
I don't
like
know.
that. Yeah,
You know,
something like that.
actually the oldest wrestling podcast is based out of Western Iowa.
Who?
It's Matt Slammers. They're still around. They started in like 2006.
I got to figure out who that is.
Jan George and the other host name escapes. They started doing their first show like at the Iowa State tournament, like in 06. They've had a Libsyn account since then, so that's how I know they're the longest one. So
yeah, I mean, we got all kinds of people, man. It's at first when we first started doing it, I was kind of calling it rough and rowdy, and then I was like, that doesn't really sound good. I actually tried to get Matt McDonough on, and I said it was rough and rowdy, and he was kind of like, I feel kind of disrespected that you're asking me to be on like a rough and rowdy, and I was like, yeah, probably shouldn't call it that because these guys they're good. It's not like they've never went out there and like put on a show. Like these guys have experience and they know what they're doing. This time though, we do have a match where two girls, Becca Ropa and Billy Sims, they've never wrestled before. That'll be the first match of the night. We like to kick it off with something that gets people on their feet. Those girls sold a lot of tickets and they're training. Becca's got more cauliflower ear than I do. Billy could easily probably beat me up. So, you look at everybody that we've got, even though they're putting on promos and people call it a circus and this and that, it's fun to watch.
They suck, the people calling it that. And just a little throwback, too. Billy actually has been in wrestling rooms for quite a while. I know she was around the George Mason room back in like the 90s. So, I mean, it's not like, it's not like she's ever stepped. This is the first time she's stepping on the mat, too. I know Brian Hazard and I were.
Becca has access to better rooms than probably every other athlete that's on the card probably.
Yeah, and her brother wrestled growing up, so she's been a tackling dummy and a workout partner in that respect.
I think her dad coached or her uncle or something like that.
And then of course I don't know her husband, who she calls Roper, oddly. I remember we were on a call one day and I was like, wait, you call Lee Roper? So yeah, it's a long story. So she can tell you that one if she hasn't already. That's one thing too that you've been doing with the promotion of this is you've been doing these kind of mini individual press conferences where you've had both athletes on talking about it. And when you do promotion like this and you've got it behind the Patreon, $3.99 a month, which, it's another subscription to some people looking at it, but it's unique. It's the only way you're finding information about it. What's been the mindset about putting things on Patreon? And of course, there's always the little okay, where are we putting it? Are we putting it on, we do it on YouTube. If you're a streamer, it's YouTube or Twitch. Well, in wrestling, it seems to be now it's Patreon or Rockfin if you're an independent. So in my case, I've got content both places. What about you? Why is Patreon the place for you?
It's just easy. I mean, it's just an easy way for us to like make some of our money back for doing these things. That's kind of why we wanted to do one of these in general is like we wanted to build up our Patreon so that way we can afford to like go out to different schools and stuff because it's expensive and we get helped out here and there from people, but Patreon for us is just a way to like stay connected with our fans. And obviously if you're willing to pay $3.99 every month, you're a pretty good supporter. So I got nothing against Rockfin or Flow or anybody like that. I would like to do a card completely free. I think I think at some point we will do a card just completely free, put it on like Facebook, like a platform where like probably like literally we want like anybody to have access to it. I think that would be cool. Just see what kind of numbers you can do. Like maybe do like a big headliner and put it on Facebook for free or YouTube for free and just see how many people you can really get. But I was really impressed with the numbers that we had for the first one, especially for our first show. I was pretty happy with it. So who knows? It could be the next one could be for free. The next one could be on Facebook. But so far, I think Patreon to us. I actually didn't get to see it live, obviously, because I was there. But I heard the comment section was hilarious. I heard there was some like Pat Downey burner accounts and stuff on there. Maybe it was the real Pat. I don't know. But I wish like we could have real time comments on more wrestling stuff, which I think Rockfin does pretty well.
And by the way, we definitely the world does not need more Pat Downey burner accounts. Just one Pat Downey account is all we need anyway, because that satisfies everything. I mean, and I say this having known Pat for pretty much I don't know, since he was in high school. So, but as we look at getting back to the origins of Stalemates, I mean, it was something you've kind of talked about on other shows, but this is your first time here. What was the idea behind it, and you've got your boy Tyler there with you, and what really kind of said, all right, let's do this.
Honestly, it was the quarantine as a pandemic. So that kind of happened in March, and then I was shut down, couldn't really work or anything. And so I grew up making videos, like trying to be in Jackass and stuff. And so I thought like, well, I miss like editing, but at that time I was 25. I can't be making Jackass videos. So what kind of content do I want to do? Wrestling season just wrapped up. So I was like super hyped on wrestling at the time. And I was like, I'll just do it with wrestling. And I'm just going to make content that I would want to see as a fan. That turned into me making like recap videos over people beefing. I think the first one was Piles and Minio, maybe. They were going at it. And so I
mean, that's one thing that does move the needle. When you get those two arguing, I don't care which side you're on, who you like, who you don't like, or if you like them both, you don't like them both. Yeah. That is entertaining. I will say, I don't know how journalistically credible it is, but it's in terms of like, come on, does that really move the needle? Yeah. Oh, well, with social media, it does.
Yeah. I was super interested in it. So I'm like, all right, I'm just going to like put these tweets together. And like, if you're not on Twitter that day, you can go and find out what happened. And then like right off of that, I mean, that got like a little bit of steam. And then right after that, that was when Downey got into it with like the whole women's team and stuff. And that's essentially when he got kicked out. And so that was definitely by far our biggest one. And then somebody posted, I think on the Hawkeye Report, like, what happened? Can someone explain it? And someone's like, I don't know who this guy is, but he just show him this video. And then after that, it was like, boom, where, I kind of knew what people liked, and we just kept doing them. And then we got invited to schools. That's when we started going out to schools. And then now here we are, we're doing events. So we're kind of all over the board. I really don't know. Tomorrow could be something completely different.
When did you realize that, holy crap, this might actually be something we can, not only we can break even on, we might be able to put a little coin in our pocket? Because as an online content creator, as a streamer, whatever you want to call the wonderful world of people that do the things that we do, it's a lot of effort usually comes into just pennies in your pocket. So when was that moment you're like, well, wait a minute, we can do this?
Probably the first time probably when you start taking phone calls, when people start saying, hey, I'm so and so, I want to talk to you on the phone, and then you talk to them, and then you're like, okay, like there's multiple people here kind of asking us, just kind of wanting to figure out who you are, or maybe offer you something. And that's when you're kind of like, I don't know what it is about me, but my first reaction to anytime somebody asks me to do something, it's always no. Like my first reaction is always like, let me wait. Like this seems weird or too good to be true or something like that. So probably when people start calling you privately, or like when there's people out there that don't interact with social media that will reach out and be like, hey, we'd love to have you, or can we talk to you? Probably that, or when Kale followed us, that was pretty cool. Yeah, name drop.
Side note, so yeah, definitely. Kale name. I'll give you a little Kale name drop.
Name up real quick.
Yeah, all right, I got Kale right behind me on that Wheaties box, which I don't know. I got two of those, one of which might be signed to me that I got when I was like, I don't know. The thing is, we're the same age, so I don't really have that. I mean, Kale's 2 months older than me, so it come through at the same time. So. Quick side Kale story. We're in the van going from the airport in Norway, from Oslo to the hotel. And I pull out the phone because my 9-year-old loves Pokemon and she's into Pokemon Go. So I pull it up and I start working on Pokemon Go on my phone to see if I can get some Norwegian exclusive Pokemon, which I have no idea what the hell these things are called. Kale's already got his phone up hunting Pokemon.
This is the recent trip to Norway?
This was 2 weeks ago.
That's
3 weeks ago at this point. This is on our way to the hotel, and it's just like, and he goes, "Oh no, you gotta do this." He's like, he's showing me how to use the Pokemon Go app. I told my daughter, "It's like you don't know who Kale Sanderson is, but he helped me get that Pokemon for you." So
that's awesome. I knew he was.
Thanks, Kale, for the Pokemon. My daughter really appreciates it. But yeah, so that's my Kale name drop of the day. But yeah, so Kale follows you guys, and then what I loved about it is. So a lot of us, I've kind of got a little bit of an uptight reputation, I guess, even though I can be kind of goofy. The fact that you and Blood Round and the Inside Trip guys have been able to use these mediums, whether it be video, whether it be podcasting, to kind of just goof off a little bit and say some things that a lot of us really do want to say sometimes that we can't, gives us a little bit of a breath of fresh air. Be like, All right, I know what I'm thinking about this tweet. Let me see what Zach. Oh, they're on it. They're on it. And then there's the
Yeah.
training, the training day memes, and I mean, just all the stuff that goes with it. So, where do you just generally come up with your ideas for some of this goofiness that really does get a rise out of some people, good or bad?
I feel like I've always just kind of had it, but I feel like it always happens in the most like inconvenient times for me. Like I'll be like busy cutting hair or busy doing something, and I'm always like, gosh dang it, I have this idea I got to put out there. So I don't know, it just kind of pops into your head, and like I have this thing where like if I think about doing it, I try not to think about doing things, because if I think about doing it, I just have to do it. And so like I try not to be like, all right, I don't even want to go down that road, because if I start going down that road, I'm gonna eventually post that, and then that's gonna get me in trouble. So I'm not even gonna go down that road. But then sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I'm gonna search YouTube for literally hours until I find the perfect clip to put out for this. Like it just I don't know. The meme world is kind of an art.
I think I'm a little beyond it too, because I'm just trying to figure out what the heck Instagram Reels is and IGTV. I mean, I put a Reels up of an unboxing of a pair of Nike Dunks I got in the mail the other day. I'm kind of COVID got you into Stalemates. It got me into shoes.
Jeez,
So
yeah.
I'm over, and it got like 4,000 views, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then I
Dude,
went back and
Reels
looked. My first
Reels,
reel
TikToks.
my first reel was walking through the hallway in Tokyo, and it was just, here's me walking through the hallway. I went back, 21,000 views on me walking through a hallway. That's,
Yeah,
I mean, I
100%.
don't get it. So this is where, like, I don't know. I'm in my 40s, so it's like it's passed me by. I'm trying to recapture that. I did another pair of shoes the other day, and that got like 200, because that's,
I'll tell you what.
I don't know.
There's such a big difference in wrestling communities. It's insane. You have the wrestling Twitter people, which I think you and I are both kind of involved in.
I got
And
my
then you have
card
like
from Ross Bendick somewhere. I got my official wrestling Twitter card. It's in my wallet, which is upstairs. But shout out Russell Chicago.
shout out to Ross. Then you have this whole other like TikTok, Instagram world, and then you have like a YouTube world, and those kids are getting massive numbers. Like we've interviewed a kid that he's a all I see is memes Instagram account. Then you got like the Heavyweight Nation kid who's like, I think he's like in college still.
Yeah,
Or
and then Wrestler Grind, I think, is another one. I know a
yeah,
couple of mine that I created, like Kennedy Blades. I tried to make one for Kennedy Blades, and then I made one for Braxton Amos. And of course, I put them out on my Instagram, nothing. They get picked up by others. Like, how does that have 21,000 likes? That's my video. I mean, at least they gave me, like, I didn't mind it. I mean, I didn't do it for the social juice.
There's just so many different like audiences in wrestling that are so much different. I feel like there's this huge disconnect between the younger crowd, like the younger kids, and then like the old heads that have been around forever.
I mean, I can be the get off
like
my lawn guy, but I don't think I am all the time, except unless I'm arguing with somebody on the Matt.com forums, which is always fun.
Do you get in there anymore?
Always is my name, man. I sometimes, with the board, and I've been posting on the Matt forum since they bought it from Joe LaRue in 2001. So my name has always been Jason Bryant on there, except, save the 3 years that I was moderating it for USA Wrestling, which I was an administrator as my name. But yeah, I think the Twitter T or the message board T today is me arguing with a fan about them not being able to Google search and find if Reese and Jordan Humphrey are brothers. And I'm just like, it's quite impossible to have missed this. Go to the front page of the website you're actually reading. This is the Matt forum. Go to the Matt. You can find it. So sorry, that is a direct shot at, somebody who is being difficult as a fan on how to use Google and telling me how SEO works. But yeah, I've gotten better. You'll find this as you're a newlywed. Congrats again on that, by the way. And how awesomely supportive your wife is of what you're doing. It's always cool to see her pop into chats when you're on shows. So hint, hint, nudge, nudge, if you're watching. But what you're going to find out is when your wife is more of a grounding presence, and it keeps you from doing something stupid. Now, I wish my wife would have been with me in Norway, because I did something unprofessional in Norway, of which I've apologized for. But I'll sit there and I'll be on my phone and be like, what are you, because the Tappa Talk, my wife be like, what are you doing? And it's just like that typical comic. Somebody on the internet is wrong. So she's gotten me away from having to correct everybody. It's like, I'm not trying to be that know-it-all guy, but sometimes if there's information I have and I think I can educate people or help people, I got to do it in a better way than no, you're wrong. So even in my 20 some years on message boards, I'm still trying to get better at this. Same with Twitter.
It's always tough to explain to the wife, like yesterday's our anniversary, right? So we were supposed to do a pumpkin patch and stuff. It's raining really hard. Can't do it. So we're supposed to watch movies all day. It's really hard to explain to her. I have to watch this 8th grader wrestle this freshman to see who's going to win. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't quite understand that, or I'll be like, hey, I'm like, I remember like waking up really early to watch like Cadet Worlds. Like, hey, I have to watch this like kid wrestle. Like try to explain to her why it's important. Or if it's a Twitter beef, like, hey, I'm on my phone a lot. I understand, but somebody called me out for something. Mm-hmm. I have to defend myself to this random account.
Oh yeah, it's again, and it's hard too because that's one thing that being on social, as we're a social sport. That's kind of what we are. So we know that if somebody we have the access to people directly instead of emailing us to us. Although sometimes you do get the salty old guy in the email who is the get off my lawn guy who doesn't like something I put in the newsletter. But like yesterday or Saturday, to your point about talking about Super 32, is I'm arguing about Bo Bassett and his age. I'm just lay off. I mean, he's a kid. Lay off. I mean, so
and my wife's like the whole.
I had to explain to my wife why I was arguing about why I gave a crap about a 15-year-old kid one way or the other. I mean, it's just like, well, because adults are making fun of kids. I have a problem with that.
There's the holding your kid back thing's been around for forever. Like
since the dawn of time. I mean, it's right. just like more prevalent now. Ask Kevin Dresser, man. When he was at Grundy back in the day when he was coaching, and that was always the guess. It's like, did these Grundy kids, when did they hold back? I mean, we even joked about it in Virginia. We called it the Grundy red shirt, and now I've got a lot of friends, but that are out there now.
A lot of the criticism shouldn't be on Bo or his family for holding him back or whatever happened. I don't know what happened, but the criticism to me would be like the media, like pushing like this like pushing it so much as an 8th grader. It's like, okay, you don't. I
mean, it's unique, and the fact is, I mean, there are 15-year-old 8th graders everywhere you look that don't play any sports. Does anybody care about him, about the 15-year-old 8th grader that's on the chess club? That might be 75 pounds and is held back because he's very tiny too, but it has nothing to do with athletics.
I was an 8th grader. I was a freshman in high school when I weighed 92 pounds. So I was like the pinnacle of like.
I was in 3rd grade. Okay, so yeah, I'm not that target demo. But although I was 17 when I graduated, I probably could have used a year in that regard. So,
yeah, I mean, I think the beef should be with the media rather than like the kid.
Yeah, I mean, and as far as it depends on how high. It was like, hey, I thought it was for the what caused it was the flow picture with Gibson talking. I was like, you know what? I thought it was a cool little, it was, a little social media juice. I don't think it was overhyped by any stretch there with that tweet. It's what I'm referring to. But it's like, really? Does somebody, and I'm guilty. I can't sit there from a high horse and just, look, punch down that I'm better. No, I get sucked into this stuff too. I'm guilty of it.
Sign me up for the Knox train. That kid's going to be fun to watch.
Holy crap.
He's a freshman in high school. Finish high school, and then we get him for another. I'm assuming he's going to go to college. Another 4 years of college. Sign me up.
I mean, you want Jersey swagger? You want Jersey swagger? I mean, geez.
Yeah. Nothing against Bo Bassett. Bo Bassett's going to be fun to watch forever. Mm-hmm. So
it's just a Jersey PA war. That's going to be fun. I hope. At this point, who knows if they're ever going to wrestle again? But man, Knox was so good in all those positions. Just fun to watch. I mean, we talk about all the time the kids that are just so much better these days than even 10, 15 years ago, and how wrestling has evolved. It's just that was such high level technique from kids that can't even drive yet. So I mean, it's crazy to watch.
I like watching the match and then seeing like in the background like, oh, there's Javi Maldonado, there's Chris Bono, there's John Reeder, there's this coach, like just literally looking at like all these coaches in the crowd. Like,
and I like it when somebody I can't remember who it was. Somebody hit a sick move. Because I kind of pieced out about halfway through because I actually had to do, husband stuff like mow the grass and for the final time before the snow starts to come and do the leaves. And at one point can't remember the move. I might have been in the Chittum match, but there was a move, and then Andy, they go wide, and there's JD and David Bray up on the podium doing the broadcast for Flow, and Andy Hamilton standing behind him, and I was like, oh, there's Andy, I have it, and then there's a move, and you see Andy go, and you see one of those, and then when you watch that, you see the coaches behind it. I like when that happens. So you're watching, you see everybody go, you just see like a sick duck under or something, or somebody hits a super duck, and you're just like, that clip's gonna go viral. Those are cool to watch happen. And again, with the Super 32, when you have, or the Iron Man, for example, when you have that intimacy around the mat, it's really fun to watch from a spectator's standpoint.
Heck yeah, it is.
Or at Stalemates Street League or Stalemates Street League 2, which you got plenty of that, including I don't know. I think Fellers is still 30 minits out, but
Fellers was throwing money on the mat. Somebody pinned a guy and he was throwing dollars, and then Corby, being as good as Corby is, was literally screaming like, "There's money on the mat! Someone's throwing money on the mat!" And like what's funny about Fellers too is he's from the same town as our official that we use. And after the event was over, we walked back into like the locker room area or whatever. And his name is Bill Reed. Bill was like, Fellers? I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, yeah, he was like on me the whole time or something like that. Cause they're both from Fort Dodge. And I think Reed made some calls that he was busting his chops about. And like, that's what we want. And I asked officials, I'm like, you guys like, was that okay? Or was that just awful for you guys? Cause you had, all these drunk wrestling fans like screaming at you. And he's like, they're like, we loved it. Like, they're both coming back. They're both going to be here Friday. They loved it. They were wearing like blue button ups with USA wrestling flags and stuff all over it. Like, everybody liked it, I think.
And about that, a couple years ago, I went out to a guy named Ryan Stoddard, does an MMA promotion, Victory Fighting. I can't remember the challenge or championships. And he did a Victory Wrestling challenge. And it was how he staged the MMA fight. But he also had the VIP tables down there, beers, bottle service. And it was like, you go to these small MMA productions and they sell out. And then we go have great high-level wrestling productions that don't. And then you get that, like, a fan wants to go and be social. Wrestling's a social sport. We want to hang out with our friends, and we want to drink beer and watch wrestling. So you've given us an opportunity to drink beer and watch wrestling. So the thing about the costs associated with it, but it's an event. So what were some of the things you had to worry about in terms of saying, all right, what are we going to do? I mean, obviously there's I don't know how the beverage control board or whatever it's called in Iowa works, but how do you go through clearing those hoops to allow things like that to actually happen?
Well, I refer to people who are smarter than me and people who've done it before. Tony Hager has been somebody who's really been like in our corner as far as like giving us advice and telling us like, hey, you have to do this, you have to do that. And just kind of using our resources. People have been seeing me tweet like, hey, we need a light, then boom, Humboldt High School stepped up, said, hey, here's a light. We use a ton of Southeast Polk stuff. So just kind of like talking to people and just trying to figure it out. I like that you brought up the MMA thing, because that's kind of like subconsciously a thing that we're trying to like replicate. Is there's these MMA shows, right, that perform quarterly or whatever it is, right? They have like 8 shows a year or something. And I'm thinking like, when you're done with college or you're done with high school, you're just done. It's just over. There's open tournaments, but it's like, okay, an open tournament's kind of a grind. They're usually pretty big brackets. And
who wants to get beat up by kids, man? Who wants to get beat up by kids? Really?
And you got grown men wrestling 18-year-olds. So it's like, it's kind of this thing where it's like,
well, you got grown men getting beat up by 18-year-olds. It's typically what's happening.
You got, but like, who wants to go and wrestle 4 to 5 times in one day? Like, nobody wants to do that. Like, a lot of guys just want to go out there and get that taste again. And so I'm looking at these MMA shows. I'm like, these guys get to compete kind of at their choosing. They can compete whenever they want. They can sign up. Their friends buy tables. Their friends buy tickets. They get to push their own merch. They get sponsorships and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, why in the wrestling world do we not have something like this where it's put on like a show? So like in MMA, they put it on like show. There's walkouts. UFC Fight Pass has signed a lot of these promotions to be on their platform. And I'm looking at wrestling, like, there really isn't anything in wrestling like that. In wrestling, we have this attitude of like, you are either training to be the best or you're just not doing it. And I'm thinking like, well, there's all these really good people that are just can't compete anymore unless they want to do these open tournaments. Like I said, as a grind. Why don't we just have it where they can just go out and compete for one night? They get a walkout like they're John Cena or freaking Conor McGregor or whoever they want to be. If they don't want to do that at all, they could care less about that. And they just
Mikey England lives for that stuff,
Mikey lives for that. What's funny about him, I don't know if you watched the Patreon press conference that we did yesterday. He didn't know Gerald was going to be on there. Gerald's like the nicest guy in the world. So Gerald's on there and he's just being super nice. And Mikey shows up, pops into the Zoom call and he's wearing a king's crown and a robe. And he was like, oh, crap. I didn't know Gerald was going to be here. And then Gerald's just super nice the whole time. Meanwhile, Mikey's like, I had all this stuff planned in my head that I was going to say and like, all this stuff. And he's just sitting there like, felt like a jerk, but they're both super respectful guys. They're excited to wrestle each other. They're both like, they both know, they're both from the MMA world a little bit, and they both, know what this is supposed to be. So that match is going to be fun.
Yeah, Gerald's another. We talk about the message board. That's a guy that's been involved in the wrestling like scene, not just from a coaching perspective, but D-La-Reg, Gerald backwards on the old Matt.com, like before because the current iteration we introduced in like 2010. We're talking like the old era of the non-wrestling topics forum that was like the most toxic place in the world for wrestling people. And Gerald was always talking about, he was moving into MMA there. I think he just finished up with college wrestling. We're pretty close to the same age. And it's like, he's been a guy that's been around wrestling. Because when he actually DM'd me before it was even announced, he goes, well, it looks like I'm wrestling again. I'm like, whoa, where are you wrestling? It's like, oh, wow. And then of course, Mikey lives for this stuff. Although, Mikey did have the did beat one of my buddies at the NCAA tournament, so he's still not high on my Tristan Warner. So let's from the school in Norfolk that has no leadership or guidance. Yeah. Anyway, enjoy the Sun Belt, which you left 30 years ago. Anyway, enough about the disposition I have with said alma mater, but or Mikey. But you got there's also a thing you're going to the family well there because I don't know if that's been told a whole lot, but there's a relative involved there.
Yeah, there's some collusion for sure. No.
Yeah.
So Mikey knew what we were doing last time. Obviously, he's like a brother to me. So I was like, hey, you want to?
But he's literally a cousin to you.
Cousin, yeah.
So he's like a brother, but is a cousin. So yeah.
Correct. So I was like, I need you to wrestle or do this thing, and he was like, heck yeah, I'll do it, definitely. Like he just likes to compete, and he actually coaches at Victory in Kansas City. And so he was ready. He knew. It just happened. The opponent that we got him, Jimmy, sold a ton of tickets, and so that match and it probably should have been the main event. And that's not disrespect to anybody else. It's just they both sold probably the most amount of tickets, and so that ballroom was loud. Like I'm telling you, it's up there with some of the other matches I've ever seen. So Mikey was like, all right, thanks. That was fun. Shook hands, like. Appreciate you, and stuff like that. And it was like, okay, like now you move on from me and you go bother other people. I was like, hey, Mikey, I need you again. He's like, whatever. I'm like, we'll make you a main event. Like everybody that came up to me from the last one, like brought you up. Like they all loved what you did. The posts that we made about you, like people loved it. I got an opponent for you, Gerald Harris, this weight. He's at 185, which Mikey's not used to wrestling. So that's up higher than normal. It's going to be good. Gerald's like, 40 something in crazy good shape. Still runs around, still training, like practices. He's got a club. He's actually going to be here anyways for preseason nationals. So if you're in town for preseason nationals, we're like a 10-minute drive from there. So it's going to be good.
Yeah, the Brian Keck Memorial preseason nationals. The last time I used to announce that tournament, and we lost Brian a couple years ago. But one thing I will say about Keck, while I have the opportunity to, is so that year, the event, I think it was in Hy-Vee Hall, and then next door is the Wells Fargo Center or Arena. What are they called? Because some places it's the center, some places the arena. It's Arena. Because I think in Tempe, it's the Wells Fargo Center, or in Philly, but too many Wells Fargos anyway. But point is Keck got us all Carrie Underwood tickets. And it was like, really? That was like one of the greatest, and it was because I was announcing preseason nationals. I got to see Carrie Underwood. Shout out to my buddy, the late Brian Keck, and him and Gerald had a relationship there with the Cleveland State tie-in. So, it's one of those things that you know what, Des Moines is a good town. So I want to circle back to that. Des Moines is the home base. That's where you got the tie-in with, of course, where you live. We've mentioned a couple Grandview guys already. My favorite place in town is the Iowa Tap Room. They did not pay for any advertising on this particular show, but I was actually debating which shirt to wear. Do I wear the Willie Miklas shirt that he gave me because he stepped in and we were trading some DMs about some things that were going on in wrestling, or Exile Brewing, which is like one of my favorite breweries down there in Des Moines, which I'd been to, I think, with your uncle back in the old Open Mat days. I think he might have been with us that day. I know he was definitely with us at Midlands. as we talked about off air a while. But yeah, the decision was it Willie Miklas or Exile? I ended up going with Willie Miklas because it's tying to your show here.
Absolutely.
You see how my brain works here?
Yeah. No, you're good.
It's all over the place.
No, you're good. And I'll say this about Des Moines too. It's kind of an underrated wrestling town, man, because
it's a good wrestling town.
Iowa City gets the love and Ames because that's what in Cedar Falls. Waterloo definitely is like, to me, wrestling city USA. But Des Moines, the Grandview guys, they showed up. There's that roster's huge, and the Grandview coaches were there, and obviously the Metro. It's probably gonna get killed for saying this, but probably the toughest wrestling conference in the state of Iowa. So it's a wrestling town, Des Moines. I wish they would bring it back. I wish they would bring it back to there, but I think the arena's just too small. When you say,
yeah, that was one of the tighter ones. Plus, I got speeding tickets on the way. 2 straight weekends. I'm going to Iowa. I got a speeding ticket on the way, just outside of Ames, and then of course you get one through Cedar Rapids because you always get a traffic camera ticket going through Cedar Rapids for D3s. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Plus, who doesn't like El Bait Shop? I mean, I know you're not as much of a beer guy. I know you're like the other sparkling, fruity stuff. But I mean, at least Zach, he did hang out with us at a craft brewery in Arkansas.
I'm pretty sure I drank beer there. I'm pretty sure I did.
What, in Arkansas?
Yeah,
absolutely, you did. That's where you said I'm not really much of a beer guy, but you sat there. Right. You were right there, man. You're humoring me with my craft beer excursions through North Little Rock.
I don't mind beer, but if I'm drinking, if we're gonna be there a while, I'd rather drink seltzers. But to me, beer, I'm a little guy. Like, beer fills me up, and I feel like I just ate too much food, and I hate that feeling. And then like taste is weird, but I'll do it. I'll drink it.
You'll man up.
You know what I compare it to? Tony Hager likes this analogy. I say that folk style wrestling is like the Busch Lights, right? They're the Miller Lights, the Bud Lights, right? Like, most people are familiar with that, right? And then you have freestyle wrestling, to me, is like the IPAs of beers. Does that make sense? So it's like the elite of the elite. We're better than you.
It depends because
like
there's some craft beer. Your first entry into craft beer usually isn't an IPA because they can be pretty harsh if you're not used to not knowing what you're talking. So like I would say more you get into the Hefeweizens and the Pilsners and the Golden, the smaller they're bigger beers than it's like a Sam Adams would be kind of like a bridge to that. Like, okay, we can go to that because it's technically a craft beer, but it's mass produced. You can get anywhere. So, dude, if we want to talk beer, we'll be here forever. So we better make sure that this is kind of dialed in. But yeah, I actually kind of like that. So folk style is let's put it in Iowa terms because Busch Light is the official beer of Iowa. It's okay. So the Busch Light is to folk style as is the Exile and single speed beverages are to freestyle and Greco. Probably more freestyle because Greco is probably that barrel-aged stout that's 30% that really you really have to have an acquired taste for it. As much as I like the individuals and the folks in Greco, I understand how some people can have an aversion to it because they want leg grabbing. Although I can't see the affinity for riding time. I can see Shane Sparks' affinity for mat returns, but I still hate riding time. Anyway.
I'll say this. I will say, and this is my last beer comment, I would say there's one beer that I would pick over a seltzer, and that's Yuengling. I would do that.
Well, let's see. I got the Yuengling lager. You can't kind of off the screen here. It is on the wall. I don't know if I can go wide. Let's see if I can do this real quick. Nope, you can't really see it from here, but it's just over my back corner. And there's one thing that what's the difference between a pint, and we call it lager in that part of Pennsylvania. I lived there for 3 years. So what's the difference between a pint of lager in Virginia Beach and a pint of lager in Lancaster, Pennsylvania?
No clue.
About $4. Okay. So, we go to this Irish bar we would always shoot darts at, and it was like pitcher night was Tuesdays. $3 pitchers of Bud, Coors Light, Miller Lite, and lager. It was like, are you telling me I get to buy a pitcher of Yuengling lager for $3? Sign me up. Those were 3 really rough years for me.
What? Hold on. What was the joke? It was what does making love in a canoe and American beers have in common?
I do not know.
It's effing close to water.
Yeah, I got it.
Can you leave that in there? We can
yeah, you didn't drop it. But by the way, and Scott Cleaver joins the chat and says Greco go dark beer. Now Scott and I, at the Clash. No, I'm just going to leave that story completely out because he is still teaching our fine children. But Zach, we've got one last thing I want to talk about because again, we could talk about what you've got going on. Just the breath of fresh air you've been to a lot of people in wrestling that, even the old sticks in the muds like myself, who apparently don't like to have any fun, is how all this has worked. And then you one up yourself with the freaking billboard. Tell me about all of it. How does this materialize?
That was a little negotiating skills on our part. So they have a digital billboard where they put upcoming things.
Is it right there on the corner next to, what is it, the Speedway?
Yeah.
Is it on that corner there? Yeah.
Yeah. There's actually 2 billboards. So we have 2. But it is a digital billboard, but normally they only put up just the text of the date. So October 5th, gun
tractor
show.
Pull, October 7th, show ponies. And October 10th, 4-H.
I negotiated that they would be putting our flyer on the billboard, and they were like, they didn't want to do it. And I was like, that's what I want. And so they were like, okay, send it to us. And then they put it up, and now our main event, half of the people on that poster are not even wrestling. So the actual people, the thing. So it is what it is. I wanted to switch it, but I'm like, screw it.
Yeah, a little Photoshop. Let's you know what? They gave us that. Now, about that, how when a lot of MMA events have to deal with it. I mean, we see it now with MMA. Oh, so and so's 16 pounds over. It's like, okay, cancellation of events, people dropping out. How much of I mean, how many? I mean, there's so many moving parts in this. How do you just keep your wits about you when somebody has to pull out? Whether it be for, I mean, I assume most of these people are legit excuses because this isn't the UFC. They're not going to they're not worried about their social image or their agents or whatnot. They're just something legitimately come up.
Yeah. I mean, it's just part of the game. And we figured that out a lot with the first one. It's probably going to happen a lot with Street League just because you got guys coming out of retirement that this happens a lot. Hey, I'll wrestle on it. Let's go. And they're like, okay, let's do it. And then usually half of those people drop out. And then the people that do say that they want to do it, they start training, and then they're like, all right, either they legitimately get injured or they're just like, yeah, I'm no way getting too competitive.
Yeah, they're not getting hurt actually at the event. They're getting hurt in preparation for the event.
Correct. And so
these are reasons, one, I never ever want to wrestle in one of these events, and I never ever want to enter the veterans or masters divisions, whatever you call it.
I've had people reach out to me like, why don't you should wrestle this person? You should do this or that. I'm like, who would run the show? How stressful it is to do it in general. And then on top of that, I got to train and be stressed about that. And I'm not good. Who would I get to wrestle? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's just part of the game. I mean, the whole thing that went down with Pat, I think at the end of the day, just brought more eyes to the event. And then this TikTok one kind of sucked, but it is what it is.
I don't know who I'm not on. I mean, I actually re-downloaded TikTok the other day, logged into it, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Yeah. So then I deleted it off my phone again. I am not your target market.
I was excited for it. I think the thing wasn't a matter of who the kid is. It was just a matter of hey, can this what would happen to Street League if we did have an influencer on it? And I want to do it again, probably not with him, but I'll do it with a different either a YouTuber, or I'll find somebody that will do it. I want to do different stuff.
I want to find those again. Remember, I was saying the guys that you get calls about that are BSing about their wrestling credentials. I want to find those YouTubers, because there was one I probably took this a little too personally, but somebody was talking about it was I think it was the first Logan Paul fight, or one of the douche canoes that are fighting. And yes, they're wrestlers. They're ours. We got to claim them, whether we like them or not. But you know what? I first saw Logan Paul on freaking Top Chef. So, he's a wrestler. And then the body thing. I'm like, let's just kind of. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Somebody was getting in one of these Discord chats, like, oh, this guy will wrestle him, and he's like, yeah, he's a 4-time national champ. I'm like, who is this guy? No, he I think he wrestled an open college tournament, and was basically the guy was totally fudging his resume, which seems to be a thing with certain people in wrestling these days, which is unfortunate. But I got into he was playing a Rocket League or something, and I'm like, on Twitch, I'm like, hey, and I'm my name, so I'm not hiding from anybody. It's like that's my name is my username there, and I'm just like, okay. And then I found him. He was like a JUCO wrestler at some school in New York, but then he said, "Oh no, you heard me wrong." I'm like, you said you won Fargo. You didn't ever play. I mean, it's like one of those things. I want to get those guys. I can't remember his name because I blocked him because I was so irate. I'm like,
hey, can you look up somebody for me?
Yeah, who are we looking at?
There's a you don't have to do it right now because I've tried, but you're better than me. There's a huge guy who like tweets about Spencer Lee, he tweets about Gable Steveson, he tweets about he loves wrestling, and he's like one of the biggest influencers in streaming and just video game culture. His name's Nick Merckx, but I don't think that's his real name. So this might be one that you do some other time because you're gonna have to look up his real name and do some deep dive. If you can find out if he wrestled or not, that would be great.
Do you got a spelling on that?
I think the farthest that we got was that his brother wrestled, but there's no way that he's like not super into the sport. Like he's super into the sport. Surely he wrestled to some extent. He's somebody that I feel like the wrestling world should be like. I would love for you to try to get an interview with him. I would try, but you got the blue check mark. I don't, so you have a better shot.
Dude, and here's the thing, real quick. Twitter Spaces is now a thing. Having the blue check mark is kind of like kind of a detriment in some respects because I remember one of my my online friends who covered sports back at ye old Alma Mater. Did a little college football thing in there, and I jumped in. I was like, "Oh, Reese is hosting little spaces. Let me just jump in." I'm listening to it, and somebody's like, "Oh, we got a blue check mark in here." I'm like, "Come on, man!" I mean, I was like, and then I was in another chat or another spaces with some podcast friends who have nothing to do with wrestling. It's more of there's I think to tiptoe around what it is. Basically, it's a show about certain aspects of the dancing industry, and I don't mean ballet. And I'm in there just chatting with some podcast friends, and the next thing I know, the discussion's kind of blue, and I look down, and there's a couple of my followers in there, like wrestling coaches and all Americans. I was like, okay, I need to get a burner for stuff like this because it's like, and they're just like, "Oh's the blue check mark." I'm like, yeah. So that can sometimes be a detriment. Trust me. You can't be anonymous with the check mark.
I've had so many funny like anonymous account ideas that I haven't done, but I want to do them.
I wanted one for Eric Guerrero's hair so bad because it would be like, I like
to show people because I get accused of being what's her name? Karen. I get accused of
Flow Legal Karen. Yeah, by the way, I mean, again,
I'm gonna show people what accounts I have. Can you see that?
No.
There are 4 accounts. There's Zach Bogle. There's a radio show I used to do. There's Stalemates, and then there's College Wrestling Focus, which is one that I used to troll Nomad one time. Other than
how quickly? Never mind. I don't want to go down to the Nomad train. Yeah, because.
But those are my 4. I just want to put it out there that I'm not Karen from Flow. I wouldn't do that. Yeah, but if you are, it's kind of a funny.
Virginia Duels, Jason Bryant, Mad Talk Online. I have access to the Media Association one, and that's it because me and Richard kind of share that Twitter account, even though it's kind of auto on my newsletter. But yeah, I tried to have a troll account one, and it lasted about a couple days. I'm just like, you know what? I felt horrible about it. Like nothing was I mean, it was a little pokey, but it wasn't like evil. And I'm like, you know what? I can't do this. So yeah. That's the only other time that wasn't my real name posting on the internet.
I haven't blocked anybody, but there's like 2 people that are very close, but I feel like I can't like give them the I don't even know what to be called, the satisfaction that they did it. That I did.
The mute thing is nice, especially since some people from my alma mater love to jump down my throat about every little thing I post about said alma mater. But you know what? You guys are cheering on the death. Yeah, you guys are cheering on the death of fellow monarchs. Okay, there's nothing about that is good if you call yourself a monarch. That's my little ODU piece. So, and the thing is, they're not listening to this show, so screw them. So, but yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of where I sit with my alma mater. And now it's just like, whatever. But I deleted Facebook off my phone. So that's one thing I did. I did that about a week ago, and I look at it once a night. And Messenger's still there because that's since nobody uses AIM anymore. It's messages and such. But man, we are in the weeds about social media communication here. No, that's the thing. It's like this is where Zach was one of the first people that jumped into the watching wrestling stuff that I will be doing again this year. And that is fun. Where we sit here in the speakeasy, or actually I did one when I was at the Gopher Duel, Gopher Iowa Duel, and we're sitting there, and I'm not doing commentary of the match because I don't have the rights to do that, but we're basically sitting there with a room full of people BSing, talking about that. Oh, holy crap, Mason Parrish just ripped that guy's arm off. So what kind of beer are you drinking? You know, that's the stuff we're going to do this year. So
we did the first one that we did. We had like 300 some concurrent.
I was mad. I was like, son of a bitch, this guy just got on here and he's already got more than me.
I was like, this is
I wasn't
easy.
like mad. I was actually jealous. I was like, I've been doing this for 20 years.
You know how that happened, though, right?
Well, didn't you put it in your title, right?
But I put like live reaction or something. Like I put something in the title, but a lot of people thought that I was like gonna bootleg Flo's stream. And so all the comments, like we're getting crazy comments, like viral comments. I'm like, what the heck? They're all just saying link. Like,
yeah, no, we're not.
And they're like, show it. And I'm like, I was so overwhelmed. It's kind of funny to go back and watch that. But we did actually gain we actually gained a lot of subscribers from doing that. So
yeah, I wanted to do more of it, like the speakeasy as we got done. By the way, I want to compliment you on now you've got a real studio. That's one thing, but the bar, man, you came out there, I was like, damn, he's even got a nice bar too with the pennants. Yeah. I mean, everybody knows about my pennants.
Setup. I might go back to.
You know, I've got a double setup here because I've got this, but I can also do things over there. Like I had Scott Green here on the show last week. So, you know, I've got a double angle. I could have done this over there with the pennants in the background and the World Championship stuff. That's where I'll do the watching wrestling stuff. I need help out there coming up with a better name because I'm not going to use Match Companion because that's kind of the idea behind it was Joe Rogan's Fight Companion.
Everybody does them now. You were
but I don't want to call it that. And I'm thinking watching wrestling, but it doesn't really like, what are you doing? We're watching wrestling. That's what it is. But it's not like, and Watch Party, I know Flo uses that. But that to me is watching the thing on video and you're watching it together. That to me, that's a watch party. So it's not like I'm not going to pirate video, and I'm not going to. I don't want anybody to pirate video. So
that's use our old name. Or not our old name. What was going to be our first name was Pen Pals.
Yeah, but I think of Homer Simpson, the bowling episode with that of The Simpsons. Man, that was like their bowling team.
Yeah.
Pen Pals. It's actually really good. But I think your social juice would be.
Yeah.
Like season 8 of The Simpsons, whichever. I don't know. I'm going to do some bad podcasting here. We're going to look up what episode Pen Pals was. Pen Pals, Simpsons. Let's see if it gives us the what. Oh, close, dude. Season 7, episode 29. Holy crap! I nailed that within a freaking season. That's problematic.
There's something. I think you're wired differently. There's something wrong with you, JB. You got too much. Somebody gave you too much data in your, or whatever that's called, bandwidth in your brain. You got it all figured out. I can't remember anything. Like people will be like, "Hey, name the last 3 Super Bowl champions." I watched all of them. I love football, but I could probably do 3, but like 4 or 5. Like my brain does not work that way.
Only one matters.
The current year.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yep. I'm a diehard Buccaneers fan. That's why I was yesterday. I was kind of giving some of my Bears fans a little guff. They're like, "Come on, dude!" And I think one of the guys like, "Dude, beating the Bears is like a half a win." It's like when you grow up in the '80s as a Bucs fan and getting beat down by the Vikings, the Bears, and the thing is, the Packers and Lions were terrible in that era too. So like those teams are beating the crap out of you. I mean, I have nightmares about Barry Sanders in the Silverdome. I mean. You don't have many wins. There are a lot of 3-13 and 4-12 seasons when you're a Bucs fan, and you weren't really ever beating the Bears. So it's like I'm still scarred as an 11-year-old, going, yeah, freaking Jim McMahon going down. So yeah, I'm still catching up on some of those wins.
I get it.
Not a huge Brady guy anyway, but hey, he gets W's.
You got to be now, right?
I don't have to be. I mean, Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl. Tom Brady won a Super Bowl. To me, they're the same.
And Gruden.
Chucky, yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. But all right, so let's wrap things up. Zach, where can they follow you on the socials? Where can they follow you on? Where can they find information about Street League? If you haven't been listening for the last hour and change, we've been on here, one of the longer random video live short times we've done in a while. By the way, this is probably going to happen again, folks. So if you like me and Zach's banner, check out the live wrestling segments we're going to have. EJ Newton jumps in via the Facebook, and by the way, our chat's been up there the whole time. He does a great show, so I'm going to take that and go, that's a win for me. But Zach, where can they find you? Where can they find Stalemates? How can they watch? What can they do?
This Friday, October 29th, live on Patreon for $3.99. You can sign up. There it is. You can sign up and you can cancel right after. You can stay on board for the next one, or so we have some other content coming that's going to be good. And so check it out, $3.99. I guarantee you it's the cheapest pay-per-view you'll buy all year. And then on Twitter and everything, it's Stalemates Show or Stalemates. Pretty simple to find. So JB, I appreciate you for having me on. You're probably one of the first people in wrestling media that I've been like following for a long time. So it means a lot that you had me on. And if anybody's listening out there and you want podcast advice, hit up Jason because he knows.
And I don't even charge you for it either, man. It's like the thing. It's like I need to put more of these affiliate links out though, because I'm actually eligible again. So
I bought this thing. And I like had it in the camera angle one time, and Jason's like, "Oh, you got the Zoom H6?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think that's what it's called." You know,
I'm a geek like that. It's like, okay, here's the SM7B, which I put the Matt Talk logo on the back of the SM7B.
That's beautiful.
So I like that. But
that's
I got the.
I could talk about for days is gear. So, but no, all the help that you've had, and then you helped me with something else that I can't talk about on air, but you helped me with something else that was pretty big. I'm sure you know what you're talking about. You know what I'm referring to. But
yeah, and you know, I'm glad to have helped plan your wedding. Let's just make it out. Let's just get it out there right now. So I didn't conduct it, but you know, and oh wait, that was somebody else completely. Sorry, I don't know who I'm talking about. But so that's how you do it. Again, be watching it on the 29th. I wanted to come down. I actually had it set to come down, and then another trip got added onto it, and it's like I kind of have this. I can't be gone every single weekend of wrestling season.
I get it.
So I mean, I'm going to Little Rock the next week, and then I got to do the lacrosse. Actually, I'm seeing Little Rock the weekend after that in lacrosse. So they got it. That's a cool thing if anybody's in the area. I'm going to little pitch for that. November 12th, the University of Wisconsin lacrosse. They've got this D1, D2, D3 like triple duel going on. Wisconsin is wrestling. Who is Wisconsin wrestling? Oh yeah, Little Rock. Upper Iowa is wrestling Ouachita Baptist, and lacrosse is wrestling University of the Ozarks. So oddly, 3 Arkansas schools are coming into lacrosse, wrestling simultaneous duels, D1, D2, D3 at the same time. And if you've never been to lacrosse, folks, bring an extra liver because it is a blast of a place. And I know Dave Malachek's going to do a great job with that. So we're going to have him talking about that in the future, but that's on November 12th. So if you're in the area, and you like Arkansas and Iowa and Wisconsin teams, that's good there too. What do you got, Zach?
Also, if you go to Little Rock, go party with the fans tailgating. They will treat you to some good seafood. Cajun food.
Well, Cajun, you say, because you know Little Rock does border Louisiana, and I'm picky about how I get my seafood. But you get that part of the country, Arkansas, you can get away with the Cajun for sure. So.
That was like some of the most fun that I've had hang out with those guys. So
yeah, and thankfully I get to go there a couple more times. I got 5 trips to Little Rock this year, so I'm gonna have to get there early enough to tailgate before I have to do my real job in the announcing. So
we'll end it real quick, but we were just like going in the arena, and I was like, "Hey, coach, can I run over there and check them out?" And he's like, "Yeah, they'd love that." Went over there, they knew we were. We got to eat the food. It was freaking sweet. So shout out to Little Rock.
Hey, shout out to any freaking wrestling teams that tailgate before their matches, especially the LRTrojans.com. So Zach, appreciate the time, man, and it's been a good one.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.
Let's do the fight thing. Was it like, how do you do it? Do you even do that anymore?
It's like not really, because I got called out for doing it. It wasn't everything. It was a thing before Stalemates, but now it's a thing.
Well, I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing them all back.